Beauty doesn't matter, it is what's inside, right? That's what they always say. That's what they whisper to comfort the broken, to soothe the rejected, to patch wounds no one really wants to see. But for her, running barefoot through a storm-choked forest, blood streaking down her legs where thorns had torn her open, those words had never been anything more than lies. Because the world had already judged her. And the cruelest judge of all had been her own mother. The rain came down hard, needles of ice stinging her skin, pressing her thin dress to her trembling frame. Every drop felt like a reminder of her shame, washing her down into nothingness. Mud clung to her feet, sucking her back with every step as though the earth itself wanted her trapped here, lost forever in the dark. Her hair was plastered to her face, strands whipping against her lips, her teeth chattering from more than just the cold. And still, she ran. She didn't run because she believed she could escape. She didn't run because she thought there was safety waiting on the other side of the forest. No, she ran because stopping meant surrendering. Stopping meant letting her mother's curse win. That curse, spoken like poison from lips that should have offered love, had stripped her beauty, stolen the light from her reflection, and left her with a face no one wanted to see. Ugly. Shunned. Unworthy. That was the truth she carried on her skin like scars no one could heal. Her breath came ragged, tearing at her throat, burning her lungs. Each step was agony, but beneath that pain, something else stirred. A spark. A heat that coiled low in her chest, pulsing with her heartbeat. A whisper of silver fire. She had never understood it, never controlled it, but it lived inside her, waiting, dangerous and restless. And tonight, in this storm, it burned hotter, as though it too knew she was being hunted. Then it came, the sound that froze her blood. A branch cracked. Not from wind. Not from rain. But from weight. Deliberate. Closer than she wanted to believe. She stopped, her entire body going still. Her knees threatened to buckle, her heart slammed against her ribs, her breath caught in her throat. The forest pressed around her, heavy, suffocating. The shadows twisted. Somewhere in that endless black, something moved. Something with eyes that could already see her, already taste her fear. Her palms hit the wet earth as her legs gave way. She sank into the mud, her body trembling so hard she thought her bones might shatter. Cold water seeped into her skin, but it was nothing compared to the ice spreading in her chest. And then, her voice broke. Fragile. Small. A single thread unraveling into the storm. I will never be free. The words vanished almost instantly, swallowed by thunder. But inside, she felt them echo. Heavy. Final. Only the forest answered back. A growl. Low. Deep. The kind that came from something with fangs sharp enough to split bone, something that had already chosen her. Her curse had made her ugly to the world, but to the darkness hunting her now, she was prey. Yet still, beneath the fear, the shame, the despair, the spark in her blood pulsed again. That silver heat, whispering not in words but in fire, rise. But she didn't rise. Not yet. She knelt in the mud, broken and desperate, wondering if this was the end, wondering if even death would spit her out like the rest of the world had. And you, listening now, what would you do, if every step you'd taken in your life had led here? Would you fight, even knowing no one ever wanted you whole? Or would you kneel, waiting for the shadows to finish what your mother began? If you want to know whether she survives this cursed night, whether the fire inside her breaks free or burns her alive, then stay. Stay close. Because this is only the beginning. And if her story already touches something inside you, then subscribe to Sophie's romance collections. Here, every tale leaves scars. Here, every broken soul finds its reckoning. And tonight, hers begins. The growl she heard in the storm was not alone. Another came, lower, closer, heavier. The forest seemed to bend around it, leaves trembling, the very air splitting as though the earth itself knew who had entered. Through the haze of rain and fog, a shape emerged. Massive. Black as midnight. A wolf. Not an ordinary wolf, not one like those that haunted the pack borders or scavenged on scraps. This one was colossal, its shoulders higher than her chest even on four legs, its presence commanding silence even from the storm. The downpour seemed to ease where it stood, as though nature itself bowed. Its eyes burned. Not the ordinary glow of a shifter's beast, but something sharper, gold with a rim of silver fire, a gaze that pierced straight into her chest. For a breathless moment, she forgot the cold, forgot the pain, forgot even her shame. Because in those eyes, she felt seen. Truly seen. And that terrified her more than the growls still echoing from the darkness beyond. The wolf moved forward. Slow, deliberate. Each step sunk into the mud with the weight of dominance. She could not look away. Her heart pounded, her pulse rushing so loudly she thought it would drown out the storm. And then, before her eyes, the beast shifted. It was like watching shadow peel itself away from flesh. Bones cracked, fur retracted, muscle reshaped. The massive wolf fell back, and from its form rose a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, carved from strength and danger. His hair was dark and wet, plastered to his forehead. His jaw was sharp, his body built for both battle and command. And his eyes, those burning eyes, remained the same. She stumbled back, mud splashing up her arms, her throat tightening as she tried to speak but couldn't. He stood there with no shame, the storm painting his skin in silver. He was power, raw and undeniable. But it wasn't just power. It was something heavier, something older, something that made even the shadows hesitate to move. His voice cut through the night. Deep. Rough, but steady. "Why do you run?" he asked, "when the forest already belongs to me?" Her body jolted as if the words had struck her. He knew. He knew she was running. He knew she was hunted. His voice was not cruel, yet it carried something that unsettled her more than mockery ever had, interest. She pressed her arms around herself, trying to hide the ruin her mother had cursed her with. "I don't," her voice failed, brittle against the storm. She tried again. "I don't belong anywhere." His gaze didn't waver. It stayed on her face, as if the mud and wet hair and curse meant nothing to him. For a moment she thought she saw pity, but no, it was not pity. It was recognition. Her stomach twisted. No one had ever looked at her like that. Not with curiosity. Not with familiarity. He stepped closer. Her pulse raced, her body trembling, but she couldn't move away. His presence was both a wall and a tether. And then, his hand moved. Just a brush, the barest touch, across her arm. Warm despite the cold. It should have repulsed her, should have made her recoil the way she always did when anyone tried to touch her. But instead, sparks erupted beneath her skin. Real. Sharp. Alive. She gasped, pulling in a breath like she'd been drowning until now. He leaned down, his voice lower. Softer. "You're not what you think you are." She flinched, shaking her head. "You don't know me." But then he said her name. Her true name. The one she had not heard spoken aloud in years. Her breath broke, her knees buckled. How? A sound cut her off. A hell. Distant, but growing. Another. And another. The kind that promised blood. His eyes sharpened, his jaw tightening as he turned toward the sound. He didn't step away from her. Instead, his body angled, shielding hers. The storm still poured, but his stance made her feel, for the first time in her life, sheltered. The howls drew nearer. The air thickened, pressing in from every direction. Rival wolves. She could smell them now, iron, wet fur, hunger. Fear clawed up her throat, but when she looked at him, standing before her, unshaken, a sliver of something else flickered through her chest. Safety. She hated herself for it, but it was there. The curse had told her she would never be safe. Yet here, in the shadow of his presence, she felt it. Her body trembled as the forest erupted with the sound of approaching predators. His muscles coiled, his shoulders tense. His voice dropped into something almost like a vow. "Stay behind me." She wanted to protest, wanted to say she didn't trust him, that no man, not even an alpha, could protect her from what had haunted her all her life. But the words caught in her throat. Because in that moment, she believed him. And that terrified her more than anything else. Who she really is. The alpha's shadow still lingered at her side, his scent wrapping around her like smoke and storm. It should have felt suffocating, but instead, it anchored her in a way she could not understand. His presence had stopped her trembling body from collapsing into the mud, yet inside, her heart clawed at its own cage, because no matter how steady he seemed, no matter how protective he looked, she carried a truth so monstrous it could turn even him away. Her lungs stuttered with the weight of it. Every breath brought memory. Every blink dragged her backward. And when his eyes, dark, commanding, and strangely kind, held hers too long, she had no shield left to keep the past from spilling open inside her mind. The rain fell heavier. The forest blurred. And the night bent back into another time. She was small again. The floor was cold stone, and the walls of her mother's chamber flickered with candlelight. The woman's beauty was cruel, sharp as broken glass, each movement laced with venom. She remembered the way her mother's lips curled, not in love, not even in recognition, but in something darker, a twisted delight in breaking what should have been hers to protect. "You think you're special because of your father's blood," her mother had whispered, voice laced with disdain. "But blood means nothing when the world sees your face." The child she once was had shaken her head, desperate, hopeful, clinging to the thought that a mother's arms might soften one day, that maybe beneath the cruelty, there was something gentler. But the hope had been foolish. That night, there was no softness. There was only the curse. Her mother's fingers traced the air like claws carving into invisible flesh. Power thickened, hot and choking, and the words cut sharper than any blade. "Your beauty will rot. Only despair will love you. No man will look at you without revulsion. No pack will claim you. You will carry your ugliness like a brand until death takes you." The heat of it had sunk deep into her skin, and she remembered the scream that never left her throat, because her voice had been stolen by shock. She remembered her knees buckling, the way her body felt heavier, twisted, tainted. And above it all, her mother's laughter. Cold. Triumphant. Final. The memory seared as if it had only just happened. She stumbled in the present, her hands shaking as though that cursed energy still crawled under her flesh. The alpha's hand steadied her elbow, but she flinched away as if burned. He said nothing at first, only watched her with that piercing gaze that saw too much. She wished she could hate it, wished she could look away. But something in his eyes pressed harder than the curse itself, something that asked without words, "What are you hiding from me?" Her chest tightened. The rain stung her cheeks, or maybe those were tears she would never admit to. She remembered the exile. The pack gathering in the square, eyes like daggers. The whispers like knives slipping between ribs. "Look at her. Rotten-faced creature. Keep her away from the children." Her hands had trembled then, too, as she wrapped herself in ragged cloth, trying to hide what her mother had cursed her to become. But no cloth could erase the sneers. No cloak could silence the laughter. No begging could soften their disgust. She had been cast out. Thrown into the shadows beyond the firelight. Alone. Always alone. For years, she had lived hidden in the folds of the forest. And when hunger gnawed too hard and shame became unbearable, she crept to the edges of villages under cover of night, stealing scraps like a feral thing. And still, inside her, something stirred. Something wild. Something dangerous. It had first appeared the night rage consumed her. She remembered the boy who had found her hiding place, remembered his smirk as he called her monster. Remembered his hand tightening on her wrist, cruel, careless, too strong. She had wanted him gone, wanted his laughter silenced, wanted him to hurt the way she hurt. And then, flame. Real flame. Flickering from her skin, licking at her arm like a serpent of fire. The boy had screamed and fled, but she had fallen to her knees, staring at the glow pulsing from her body. That was the night she realized her curse was more than her mother's cruelty. It was power. Raw. Untamed. Terrifying. Power that no one must ever see. Her heart beat too fast as the memory faded back into the storm-drenched present. She dared not look at the Alpha. Dared not let him glimpse the truth trembling at the edges of her control. Because she knew the risk. If he saw her true face, if he glimpsed the ugliness, the rot, the fire, he would recoil just like the rest. He would turn his back. He would leave her to the shadows where she belonged. And yet, his gaze did not falter. It was as if he already saw beyond every mask she wore, beyond the dirt, beyond the curse. His eyes seemed to strip her down, layer by layer, not to humiliate, not to condemn, but to understand. Her chest ached with the unfamiliar weight of it. Was it possible? Could someone look at her without disgust? Could someone stand this close and not flinch? Her voice broke before it even left her lips, so she said nothing. Only let her silence hang heavy between them. The Alpha tilted his head, his dark hair clinging wet to his temples, his jaw set with something unreadable. When he finally spoke, his words were soft, yet carried the power of. And for the first time in her cursed life, hope hurt worse than despair. The storm thinned as they pushed deeper into the forest, the air shifting, heavy with something older than the trees themselves. She didn't know why her feet moved, only that they followed an invisible pull, each step drawn toward a place that seemed to be waiting for her. The Alpha's stride was slower now, watchful, as though he sensed the shift too. His hand hovered close, not touching, not claiming, but steady enough that she could feel his presence even in the spaces between them. The forest opened suddenly. A grove carved into the earth, encircled by stones so tall they seemed to scrape the belly of the sky. Vines coiled over their faces, but the carvings beneath still breathed. Wolves, etched in graceful arcs, bowing not to the moon, but to a woman. Her hands blazed with fire. The sight froze her breath. Moonlight broke through the clouds, spilling like liquid silver across the carvings. It caught the fire in the stone, and for a heartbeat, the flame seemed alive, glowing as if it burned within the rock itself. She staggered forward, her chest tightening with every pulse in her veins. The ground seemed to hum, vibrating under her bare feet. Each carving shimmered faintly, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat, until she swore the stones themselves were alive, watching, waiting. Her knees weakened. The world blurred at the edges. And she felt it, an ancient weight settling onto her shoulders, not cruel like her mother's curse, but heavier, older, undeniable. The Alpha's voice broke through the silence, low and reverent. The one with the mark, the prophecy is real. Her head snapped toward him, eyes wide, throat dry. No, the word scraped out, brittle, as if her lungs resisted even the thought. That's not me. I'm not. But the ground disagreed. A warmth surged through her chest, rushing into her veins until her skin burned. Symbols on the nearest stone flared brighter, pulsing in time with her racing heart. She lifted her hands, trembling, and the glow followed, rising up her arms, weaving across her skin like threads of fire hidden beneath flesh. Her body betrayed her. Vision struck, violent, overwhelming. She saw flames swallowing the night sky, wolves locked in battle, blood staining the earth dark. She saw a crown wrought not from gold but from silver fire, gleaming with untouchable heat. And she saw herself, eyes alight, hair streaming like black smoke, power radiating from her body as packs bowed or burned at her feet. She tore herself free of the vision with a strangled cry, stumbling back, clutching at her arms as if she could claw the fire out. No, no, I can't, her voice broke, raw, frantic. I can't be that. I'm cursed. Do you hear me? Cursed. The Alpha did not move closer. He stood rooted, watching her with the stillness of a predator, his gaze sharp as a blade but not cruel. He let the silence stretch, let her words crash against the grove like waves against stone, and when he finally spoke, his voice was steady, deep, unyielding. Cursed, or chosen? The words struck harder than any vision. Her hand shook violently. The fire dimmed under her skin but did not vanish, as if waiting for her acceptance, not her denial. Her chest heaved with shallow breaths, each inhale scraping her throat raw. She looked at him, desperate for rejection, waiting for him to recoil like everyone else had, praying for it almost, because if he turned from her, then maybe she could keep believing she was nothing more than the broken, ugly thing her mother made her. But he didn't move. The alpha's eyes softened, just barely, enough for her to see something in them she had never seen reflected in anyone's face when they looked at her. Not pity. Not disgust. Not fear. Something else. Something dangerous. Conviction. You think your mother's words define you, he said, voice low, rolling through the grove like thunder. But the stones tell another story. The moon reveals another truth. You are more than her curse. You are bound to something greater than her cruelty. Her lips parted, but no sound came. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him he was wrong, that he didn't know the years of filth she'd crawled through, the shadows she'd lived in, the laughter that had carved her hollow. She wanted to tell him he couldn't see what was beneath the rags, what was rotting under her skin. But the grove itself betrayed her. The carvings burned brighter, the fire spreading along the circle until the entire grove pulsed like a heartbeat, hers, undeniable. The wolves in stone seemed alive, bowing lower, shadows dancing across their etched backs as if they moved in rhythm to her own trembling breaths. Her stomach knotted, her body weak with terror. Stop, she whispered, clutching her arms, curling in on herself. Please, stop. I don't want this. The alpha stepped forward, slow, deliberate, his presence filling the space without force. The prophecy doesn't care what you want. His voice was not cruel but unrelenting, carrying the weight of a truth he had carried far longer than she had. Neither did the curse. But one destroyed you. And the other, his eyes held hers, dark and endless. The other will make you. She shook her head violently, rain flying from her hair, denial clawing at her throat. I can't lead anyone. I can barely survive. You survived exile, he countered, his tone sharp as iron. You survived scorn. You survived the night your own blood turned against you. Do not mistake survival for weakness. It is proof. Her chest twisted painfully, every word striking deep where she tried to keep herself numb. He closed the last of the space between them, stopping just before his hand could touch her. His voice dropped, low, almost a growl, reverberating with something primal. The prophecy has waited for you. And so have I. The air between them thickened. Her pulse hammered against her ribs, the fire under her skin responding, flickering to life as if his nearness alone awakened it. She felt the pull, the undeniable connection, as though some thread deeper than choice had bound them in that moment beneath the moon. She wanted to step back. She wanted to run. But her body would not obey. Her whisper broke fragile in the air. Why me? The alpha's eyes softened in a way that was almost unbearable, the storm inside them quieting for the first time since she'd seen him shift from the wolf. Because fate wastes nothing, he said simply. Not even what the world calls broken. And as the grove pulsed around them, as the prophecy carved itself into her skin with light and fire, she realized with horror and awe that he believed it. He believed in her, when she had never dared believe in herself. The grove still throbbed with light when the first howl split the night. It wasn't the alpha's. It wasn't hers. It was something darker, low, guttural, stretched with malice. The kind of sound that curdled the blood before the mind even knew to fear it. The alpha stiffened, shoulders tight, his gaze cutting toward the trees. Every line of his body shifted from reverence to readiness, the reverent stillness of the prophecy replaced by the predator's tension before a strike. She froze, breath hitching, the fire under her skin sparking as if it too recognized the danger. The carvings around them dimmed, as though retreating, as though even the stones feared what stalked the edges of the grove. Then the shadows moved. Figures slipped through the fog, eyes gleaming yellow, red, and black. Not wolves, not men, something between. Their shapes twisted grotesque, limbs too long, jaws split too wide, as if something foul had tried to wear wolfskin and failed. Shadow beasts. Born of forbidden rites, summoned by those too desperate, or too afraid, to let prophecy breathe. The Alpha stepped forward, placing his body between her and the threat, his voice dropping into a growl that rattled the grove. Cowards! You dare bring that filth into sacred ground? A voice slithered from the fog, sharp as broken glass. Better filth than fire. Better shadows than her. Another figure emerged, an alpha, broad-shouldered, scarred, flanked by others wearing the insignia of rival packs. Their eyes never left her. And the hatred in them was as real as the beasts at their heels. She is the cursed one, the scarred alpha spat. The prophecy twists truth. She will burn us all. The words hit harder than claws. She flinched, the shame her mother had sown into her flesh rising like bile. Her hands trembled. The silver light flickered again beneath her skin, betraying her to every watching eye. The beasts lunged. The grove exploded into chaos. The alpha shifted mid-step, his massive wolf form bursting forth in a blur of muscle and black fur, teeth flashing in the moonlight. He slammed into the first shadow beast, the sound of snapping bone echoing across the stones. She stumbled back, heart in her throat, every instinct screaming at her to run, but the fire under her skin burned hotter, demanding she stay, demanding she fight. Another beast lunged at her. She threw up her hands, reflex, nothing more, and the silver flame erupted. It burst from her palms like lightning-made flesh, searing the air, striking the beast mid-leap. It shrieked as its body burned from the inside out, collapsing into ash before it hit the ground. The grove fell silent for a fraction of a breath. Every eye turned to her. Not with awe. With fear. She's a monster, someone hissed. She'll destroy us all, another cried. Her chest clenched, her stomach twisting until she thought she might break apart. The flame still danced across her skin, wild, uncontrolled, responding to every surge of panic in her veins. She couldn't stop it. She couldn't contain it. The more she fought to push it down, the stronger it clawed its way out, until the very stones glowed in response. The alpha shifted back, blood dripping from his jaw, his chest heaving. He stood between her and the beasts again, but now he was shielding her not just from them, but from the wolves staring in horror. Enough, he snarled, voice raw, echoing across the grove. She is not your enemy. The scarred alpha laughed, a sound like iron scraping stone. Not our enemy? Look at her. The curse burns through her veins. Choose her, and you choose ruin. Others joined, voices rising, a chorus of fear. You doom us all. The prophecy lies. She will turn her fire on us. Her knees buckled under the weight of their words. She wanted to scream that she hadn't asked for this, that she never wanted their prophecy or their fire, that she would give anything to be rid of it. But her throat locked, strangled by a lifetime of scorn and rejection, and only silence escaped. The alpha's jaw tightened, his hands curling into fists. His council stepped forward, their faces grave, their voices carrying the authority of tradition. You are our king, one said, voice steady, heavy with warning. But kings fall when they forget their people. If you claim her, you claim our destruction. Another's tone was sharper, pleading. Choose wisely, my alpha. Choose us. The world pressed in on her, choking, suffocating. Their eyes carved her open, saw not the girl but the curse, not the survivor but the threat. And for one fragile second, she swore she saw doubt flicker across the Alpha King's face, so small, so quick, but enough to slice her open. Her chest caved inward. Her lungs ached with the weight of betrayal she had known too many times before. She had dared to believe, just for a moment, that he saw her, that he believed in her. But now, with his people's voices filling the grove, she knew how this story ended. It always ended the same. Alone. Her fire dimmed, curling back under her skin, leaving only the raw ache of emptiness behind. She staggered backward, her voice trembling, breaking. I will not be the reason your world burns. The Alpha's eyes widened, but she turned before he could reach her. The grove blurred through her tears as she fled, feet pounding the earth, branches whipping against her skin. She ran from the beasts, from the prophecy, from him, because no matter how fiercely he had fought for her, the world would never stop seeing her as a curse. The night swallowed her whole. Her whisper broke against the storm, fragile, hollow. I will never belong. And the darkness answered, carrying her vow into the trees. The rain chased her into the wilderness, pounding through the canopy until the forest itself seemed to bleed. Her breath tore ragged from her lungs, each step a battle against exhaustion, each heartbeat a drum of fury and despair. She wanted distance, distance from prophecy, from the wolves' accusing eyes, from the man who dared to believe in her when she had never believed in herself. But the forest had other plans. The storm pressed her toward the cliffs, where jagged stone walls loomed like the ribs of some ancient beast. Cracks split the rock, caves hidden between shadows. She stumbled into one, collapsing against the cold stone floor, her chest heaving, her body trembling from cold and fire alike. The cave was dark, the storm muffled beyond its walls. For the first time since the grove, silence wrapped around her. But silence did not mean peace. Her arms shook as she touched her skin, still faintly glowing where the fire had surged. She pressed her palms into the earth, willing the last embers to fade, terrified that even the rock beneath her might burn if she lost control again. Tears slid down her cheeks, hot against her chilled skin. She hated herself for them. She hated how easily the wolf's words had pierced her. She hated the fear in their eyes, because it was the same fear she had seen her entire life. She hated that for one fleeting moment, she had thought the Alpha was different. The storm rumbled low, thunder shaking the stone. And then she felt it, his presence. Her eyes snapped open, her body stiffening. At first, she thought it was her imagination, her mind conjuring him the way it always had since their paths crossed. But then the air shifted. A shadow broke from the mouth of the cave, tall, broad, filling the space with a weight that left no room to deny. He had found her. The Alpha stepped inside, rain dripping from his black hair, his shoulders still slick with storm water. His eyes locked on her. Dark, unwavering, too steady, too sharp. He carried no weapon, no armor, only the silence of a predator who knew he could not be stopped. She forced her voice out, brittle as glass. Stay away. But he didn't. He crouched slowly, closing the distance with the patience of someone approaching a wounded animal. His gaze flicked over her arms, her torn skin, the bruises rising across her shoulders. He didn't reach for her immediately. He simply looked, long enough that her body burned under the weight of his attention, long enough that she wanted to scream. Finally, his hand moved. He reached into the pouch strapped to his side, pulling free a strip of cloth, a vial of herbs, a salve. His voice was low when he spoke, the storm muffled behind it. You're bleeding. I said stay away. Her voice cracked, but she raised her chin, forcing strength into it. I don't need your pity. His jaw flexed, but he said nothing. Instead, he uncorked the vial, poured a thin stream of liquid onto the cloth, and reached for her arm. She flinched back, striking the wall behind her, stone scraping her skin. Don't. His hand froze inches from her. His eyes lifted to hers, steady, unyielding. I'm not here to pity you, he said. I'm here because you're breaking, and I won't let you. Her breath caught. Something in his voice cut deeper than claws. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't soft. It was a vow. Slowly, deliberately, he closed the space, and this time when his hand brushed her arm, she didn't move. His touch was firm but careful, fingers steady as he cleaned the wound. The sting of the salve burned, but beneath it was heat, not from the herbs, but from his skin against hers. Her pulse thundered in her throat. She hated that she noticed the warmth, hated that she leaned into it despite herself. But she couldn't stop. His hand lingered, longer than it needed to, thumb brushing her skin as though memorizing it. The cave was silent except for their breaths, the crackle of fire beginning as he sparked flint against stone, building a flame in the pit near the wall. The light washed over his face, illuminating the lines carved there, not by age, but by battles and losses. Scars traced across his chest and ribs, revealed as he shed his soaked cloak and shirt. Her eyes caught on them before she could stop herself. Pale ridges, deep grooves, stories carved into flesh. She looked away quickly, ashamed of the heat rising in her chest. But his voice followed, quiet, steady, a confession carried on firelight. "Wolves carved those into me," he said. "Not beasts. Not shadows. Wolves I trusted. Wolves I called family." Her gaze snapped back to him, startled by the rawness in his tone. He stared into the fire, not at her, his jaw tight. "They slaughtered my bloodline when I was a boy," he continued. "They wanted the crown. They wanted me dead too, but I survived." His fingers brushed the scar running across his ribs, lingering there. "I learned then that betrayal cuts deeper than claws." Silence pressed heavy between them. Her chest tightened, her throat closing around the ache his words stirred. He finally looked at her, eyes dark, voice low. "So don't think I don't understand what it is to be cast out. To be hunted by your own." Her breath hitched, and the words tumbled from her before she could bury them. "You don't understand this." She lifted her hand, and flame flickered faintly across her skin, silver light threading up her arm like veins. Her voice broke. "When I feel too much, it consumes me. Anger. Fear. Even this." The fire sparked brighter, answering her confession. She yanked her hand back, curling it into her chest. "I can't control it. I'm dangerous." His gaze didn't waver. He leaned forward, close enough that the heat of the fire mingled with the heat of his body, close enough that she could feel his breath against her skin. His voice was low, a growl edged with something softer. "Then be dangerous with me." Her heart stopped. For a moment, neither of them moved. The firelight danced across their faces, the storm outside fading to nothing but a distant hum. His hand rose, slow, deliberate, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. His knuckles grazed her cheek, and sparks surged through her body, hotter than the fire she feared. Her lips parted. His gaze dropped to them, lingering, heavy with unspoken promise. The air thickened, charged, the space between them shrinking until only a breath remained. And then thunder cracked above, shaking the cave to its bones. She startled, jerking back, the fire at her fingertips sparking wildly before she forced it down. Her chest heaved, her body trembling with the force of what almost happened. The Alpha's eyes burned into hers. His voice was a whisper, rough and reverent. "I see you. All of you. And I do not turn away." The words lodged deep in her chest, breaking something open that had been locked for years. She wanted to deny them, to push him away, to keep the walls around her heart unbroken. But his voice lingered, low and steady, until all she could do was sit there, trembling in the firelight, knowing she was already undone. The council's chamber was carved from stone older than memory. Torches lined the circle. Her pulse battered her ribs, wild, frantic, desperate. She could feel the mask pressed against her skin, the enchanted veil that hid what lay beneath. It had been her shield for so long that her own reflection felt foreign. Without it, she was raw, exposed, nothing but the monster they whispered she was. The Alpha stood at her side, tall, steady, radiating a dominance that silenced murmurs with a glance. Yet tonight, even his presence could not protect her. Not here. Not before the council. An elder's voice cut through the chamber, brittle as frost. "We gather to judge the one tied to prophecy. The one who claims the Alpha's bond." She swallowed hard, her throat dry as bone. Claim? She had never claimed anything. If anything, the bond had claimed her. Yet the weight of dozens of stairs pressed down, demanding proof, demanding truth, demanding blood. The rival alpha stepped forward from the shadows, his smile sharp, his voice smooth with venom. Shall we peel away the lies she hides behind? Shall we see the truth she fears? Her breath caught. Her fingers curled at her sides, nails biting her palms. She wanted to run, but her legs rooted to the stone. The elder nodded. Remove the mask. The rival moved swiftly, seizing the fabric before she could retreat. In one cruel tug, the veil tore away. The chamber gasped. Whispers rose like a storm breaking through silence. Monster. Witch. Curse-bearer. Her stomach twisted. She forced herself not to hide, not to cover her face with her hands, though every instinct screamed to bury herself in shadow. The air prickled against scarred flesh, against the uneven ridges, the silver burn marks that streaked across her skin like molten veins. Her secret, her shame, exposed. Her eyes darted instinctively to him. To the alpha. For a heartbeat, his mask of strength faltered. Pain flashed in his gaze, pain not of disgust, but of something deeper, something heavier. Yet in that fragile breath, it didn't matter. She saw doubt. She saw hesitation. And it cut deeper than any blade. Her chest fractured, air catching like shards of glass in her lungs. The rival's voice slithered into the silence. Behold the face of doom. The prophecy warns of fire that will consume us all. And look, already her curse burns through her flesh. She is no mate. She is death wrapped in flesh. The council stirred, some recoiling, others murmuring in agreement. Fear spread like rot through the chamber, each whisper another weight pressing against her chest. No, the alpha growled, his voice slicing through the noise. His body shifted closer to hers, protective, defiant. She is mine. But even as he said it, she felt the tremor beneath his words. He had not moved when her mask fell. He had not denied the whispers fast enough. And that hesitation, small, brief, human, was enough. Her throat burned. Her vision blurred. Heat surged beneath her skin, rising, clawing, demanding release. Tears welled, but the moment they broke free, they hissed into steam against her cheeks, turning liquid grief into flame. She stumbled backward, shaking her head. No, no, I can't. The fire inside her roared, unstoppable. Sparks leapt from her fingertips, flickering like wildfire waiting to be unleashed. Wolves flinched, stepping back as though her sorrow were a blade. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. All she knew was escape. Her gaze caught his one last time. For an instant, she thought she saw him reaching, thought she heard his voice through the storm inside her. But it was too late. The chamber blurred. Her feet struck stone, then dirt, then forest. She ran blindly, flames licking at the ground where her tears fell, igniting roots, scorching leaves. Behind her, the council's chamber erupted in chaos. Shouts, growls, orders barked into the night. But the sound faded beneath the crackling roar of fire devouring the world she fled. Her heart broke with every step, the forest itself catching fire in her wake. She was not running from them. She was running from herself. And still, the whisper chased her, low, venomous, echoing in her skull. Monster. Witch. Curse-bearer. The words burned louder than the flames. She didn't stop until the forest glowed red, until smoke coiled into the sky like a beacon of ruin, until the night itself trembled beneath the weight of her devastation. The blood moon rose like a wound in the sky, swollen and red, bleeding light across the forest. It was a night carved into prophecy, a night every wolf had been taught to fear. The air itself felt poisoned, heavy with ritual smoke, ash, and the copper tang of blood spilled too soon. The clearing pulsed with cruel ceremony. Torches thrust into the ground burned black flame, the work of old, forbidden magic. At the center, stone altars jutted from the earth, rough and cold, each bearing the weight of a wolf bound in chains. Young, trembling, their eyes wide with terror, their fur matted with rain and blood. Innocence. The rival alpha stood tall at the head of the ritual circle, his eyes reflecting the blood moon, his grin savage. Shadows clung to his shoulders like armor, twisting, writhing, taking shape as beasts not born of nature. He raised his hand and the ground obeyed, groaning as roots turned to shackles, binding the helpless tighter. His voice carried, deep and commanding. The prophecy is a lie. The curse she bore was the truth. Tonight, under the blood moon, we cleanse the packs of her stain. These wolves, sacrificed for balance. Their deaths will protect us from her fire. The crowd of gathered clans murmured, fear and fury tangled in every breath. None stepped forward to stop him. They were afraid. Afraid of prophecy, afraid of fire, afraid of her. And then, the air shifted. A low hum, subtle at first, spread through the clearing. Torches flickered. Shadows recoiled. Wolves turned their heads toward the forest edge, hackles rising though no threat yet appeared. A wind swept across the ritual, cold enough to bite, hot enough to sear. From the tree line, she emerged. No mask. No veil. No shame. Her hair, once matted with rain, now gleamed like molten strands in the blood moon's light. Her eyes burned, not with tears, but with fire, pure silver flames alive inside her gaze. Each step she took scorched the grass beneath her, the earth bending to her will, the air warping with heat. Gasps tore from throats. Whispers cracked like lightning. The rival alpha's grin faltered. His shadow beasts snarled, unsettled, their forms trembling against the pull of something greater. She did not run. She did not falter. She walked into the circle as though she owned it, as though the moon itself had risen only for her. Her voice broke through the tension, low, steady, carrying across every ear, every trembling heart. I am not your sacrifice. The words rang out, undeniable, unshakable. She stopped at the foot of the stone altar, fire flickering across her hands, glowing like living armor. Her voice sharpened, fury laced with clarity, with power. I am your reckoning. The ground quaked. Flames erupted around the circle, racing up the torches, swallowing the black fire and turning it to silver-white blaze. The chains binding the innocent wolves glowed red, then shattered, sparks flying into the night as freedom burst from her rage. Her body trembled as heat poured through her veins, but this was not the old fire that devoured her when emotion consumed her. This was different. This was controlled, focused, transformed. For the first time, the fire was hers, not her curse, but her crown. The rival alpha snarled, his voice twisting into fury. No. You were meant to fall, to burn yourself to ash. You are not chosen, you are ruin. He lunged, shadows rising with him, beasts snarling, jaws wide. But as he struck, the air split. Her body arched, her scream a roar that was no longer human, no longer bound. Flames poured from her, not wild but sculpted, forming wings of silver fire at her back, a halo of light that swallowed the shadows whole. The curse that had marked her flesh melted away, scars dissolving, ridges smoothing, her true face revealed in the blaze. Beauty so fierce, so unearthly, it was not mere appearance, it was power incarnate. Her every breath lit the clearing, every movement a declaration. Wolves fell to their knees without command, their bodies bowing instinctively, their souls recognizing what their minds had denied. The earth trembled. The sky split. Lightning cracked across the blood moon, slicing red with white, as though even the heavens declared her reborn. And then, through the fire, he came. The Alpha King. Not as savior, not as protector, but as equal. He tore through the rival shadow beasts with claw and fang, his body shifting with fluid, terrifying grace. The black wolf rose, massive, fur bristling, eyes golden fire. He shifted mid-strike, flesh replacing fur, his bare form blazing with strength. Side by side, they stood, the king of wolves and the queen of flame. Her hand lifted, fire streaming from her palm, coiling into a spear of silver light. His fist clenched, summoning the primal strength of the pack's ancient blood. Together, they struck. Shadow shrieked. Darkness recoiled. The rival alpha screamed as silver fire wrapped his body, burning through every thread of forbidden power he had stolen. His howl was not of victory, but of defeat, echoing into nothing as flames consumed him. Silence fell. The fire dimmed but did not die. It lived in her eyes, steady, eternal. She stood taller now, shoulders back, no longer shrinking from stares but commanding them. The innocent wolves huddled at her feet, no longer chained, their eyes filled with awe. One whispered, voice trembling with devotion, "She saved us." The Alpha King turned, his gaze fixed on her, his voice low, reverent. "They will tell stories of this night," he said. "Of the moment fire bowed to you, not the other way around." She looked back at him, her lips parting, her heart still raw, still torn between fear and belonging. Yet the fire in her chest whispered the truth she had never dared to believe. She was not cursed. She was chosen. And the world had just witnessed her awakening. The battlefield smoldered in silence. Ash floated like gray snowflakes through the clearing, soft and ghostly, settling on torn soil and broken stones. The torches were dead, their blackened tips smoking faintly, but her fire still lingered, glowing across the earth in streaks of silver light that refused to vanish. The night air carried it, the unmistakable weight of power that could not be undone. Wolves who had once knelt in instinct now rose, hesitant. Their eyes shifted from awe to wariness, from gratitude to unease. No chains bound them now, yet invisible chains of fear wrapped tighter around their minds. Whispers began, low at first, carried by trembling voices. "She freed us," one murmured. "Yes, but at what cost?" another hissed back. "She burns too hot." "Did you see the sky? Did you feel the earth? She is not natural." Each word struck her like a blade, sharper than the chains had ever been. Her chest tightened, the victory in her veins curdling into something bitter. The rival Alpha was gone, his ashes scattered in her flame, yet the true enemy, doubt, remained. Her body trembled, not from weakness, but from the weight of their stares. She had revealed herself, fully, completely. No mask. No hiding. No curse to shield her from rejection. And still, they looked at her with suspicion. As if freedom itself had been too much of a gift. The Alpha King stepped forward, his presence cutting through their murmurs like steel. His voice was steady, sharp, commanding. "She saved your lives. She saved your young. She burned away the darkness that would have devoured you." But even his authority could not silence their unease. A wolf near the front lowered his gaze and whispered the words that hung heavy over them all. Or she replaced one darkness with another. Her heart clenched. The fire in her chest flickered, unsteady, begging to lash out in her defense. She bit it back, forcing the flame down, refusing to let it prove them right. She turned away, unable to meet their eyes, unable to bear the truth of their fear. The Alpha's hand brushed her arm, grounding, steady. His warmth seeped into her, but even his touch could not drown the echo of their whispers. She wanted to believe in him, in his faith, but the seed of doubt had already burrowed deep. She drew in a shaky breath. The silence of the clearing pressed heavy against her ears. And then, slowly, softly, the narrator's voice broke through, a whisper that reached not only her, but every listening heart. "Would you have chosen her, or feared her too?" The question lingered, heavy, unrelenting. "She has saved them, yes, but is salvation enough to erase the curse of fear? Would you see her as the fire that warms, or the fire that consumes? Would you call her savior, or curse in disguise?" The wolves shifted uneasily, their eyes flicking between her and the Alpha King, waiting for something, for certainty that did not exist. She stood, her back straight, though her heart trembled. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. "I did not ask for this fire. I did not beg for this curse. But I will not apologize for saving you." Her words struck the air like sparks. Some heads bowed, ashamed. Others lifted, defiant. The line was drawn, though none dared to speak it aloud. She was not merely their savior. She was their question. Their uncertainty. Their choice. And still, in the shadows of that silence, the narrator's voice returned, haunting, lyrical, unshakable. If her fire lit something inside you, if her pain became your pain, if her strength made your heart tremble, then do not look away. Subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections. Here, we tell tales that burn through the night, stories that do not fade, stories that demand you choose a side. The flames dimmed to embers. The night settled, heavy with what had been won, and heavier still with what had not. The fire's embers had barely dimmed when the first tremor rippled through the earth, subtle at first, like the breath of something ancient stirring below. She froze, the ashes of her flame still clinging to her skin, silver light fading into the dawn. The wolves around her shifted uneasily, paws scraping the soil, ears pinned back, eyes darting toward the horizon. For a fleeting moment, she believed it was over. That her choice to stand, to burn, to rise, had finally ended the nightmare. But the silence was too sharp, too heavy. Then came the voice. It did not belong to any throat she could see. It slid out of the shadows curling between the ruined pillars of the blood moon altar. Low. Unyielding. Not human. Not wolf. Something deeper. She is not the only one. Her breath hitched. The Alpha King at her side stiffened, his golden eyes narrowing into slits of warning. He placed himself half a step in front of her, protective instinct roaring through his posture, but she felt the words strike directly into her bones. Not the only one. The prophecy was not singular. The curse had never been hers alone. The ground cracked beneath the altar, dust spiraling into the air as ancient carvings, forgotten, buried, glowed faintly red against the stone. A rumble answered from beneath, like a heartbeat too large to belong to the world. She could almost hear the pulse in her own veins echoing it, syncing with something she did not understand. The wolves bowed instinctively, not to her, not to him, but to it. Their bodies trembled, caught between reverence and terror. And when the voice spoke again, the dawn itself seemed to recoil. The true Alpha hasn't risen, yet. Her stomach twisted. She had just begun to taste what freedom felt like, to hold her power not as a curse but as a flame of belonging. And now, another shadow loomed. Another force waiting to claim what she had barely learned to wield. She glanced at him, the Alpha King, his jaw tight, his hand flexing at his side as if torn between battle and comfort. His gaze cut to hers, and in it, she saw what he would never admit aloud, fear. Not of her. Not anymore. But of what was coming. The dawn did not bring peace. It brought questions, sharper than claws, heavier than chains. Who was the true Alpha the voice spoke of? Was her fire merely a beginning? Or a distraction? Had she been chosen, or used? Her lips parted, but no sound escaped. Her voice trembled in her throat, trapped between defiance and despair. Around her, whispers spread, hushed and frantic. Another Alpha? A prophecy incomplete? What does it mean? She could not answer. Not yet. The Alpha King leaned close, his breath warm against her ear, grounding her even as the world threatened to unravel again. Whatever comes, we face it together. His words were steady, but his heartbeat, she felt it even without touching him, was a storm. And still, that voice lingered in the ruins, curling like smoke, promising that her battle was only the prologue. Her journey had just begun.